Alright, next on the list is Long Island. So, wait, where'd she go? She go back to the dorm again? I guess she really did want to play that new game that came out on her phone, didn't she? I can't really blame her. Arknights is kind of a fun game to play. Well, I guess I'm gonna have to go get— Alright, on to Ghost Boat. No, not that one. Or that one. Today we're talking about USS Long Island. Now, Long Island starts off as everyone's starter backliner. Well, okay, at least for Ian. I don't know how JP and CNET did it. So, if you don't have her, then you've already done something very terrible, and now I'm very sad. How could you do that? Anyway, Little Long Island here is one of the Eagle's several light carriers that they have available to them. But can this little ghost boat stand out against the decent group of light carriers we have? Well, let's take a look and see how good she is. Starting off with her survival stats, Long Island has a decent health pool for a light carrier. It actually does beat several other light carriers and even some elites in terms of that health pool as well. So that's not bad survivability for her. Now her armor type is medium, so take extra care when one encounters battleships, as AP main guns from those particular ships is gonna hurt her pretty badly. Now Long Island may have a higher health pool than most other light carriers, but pays for that with a lower evasion than most ships. The difference can be enough compared to other ships that she'll be more likely to take additional hits, so I guess that's a bit more balanced in this case. Lastly, her anti-air seems about average when compared across the entire light carrier class, so she'll contribute to shooting down planes as well as anyone else and will take about the same amount of damage as others. Now looking onto her more offense-based stats, her aviation seems a tad bit on the low end, so she'll struggle against many ships in terms of dishing out damage. Her reload is a tad bit higher than most ships, but the difference is kinda minuscule. Sadly, her damage output doesn't seem to be the best. Now, of course, depending on the loadout, this could make things look not so great or be okay. However, I would like to remind everyone that someone thought it was a good idea to bring a gun to a plane fight, right, Holshore? Speaking of equipment, let's take a look at Long Island's equipment setup. Now, as I will always say, it's important to pay attention to what each carrier and light carrier has. Not every carrier runs a standard setup, which includes a fighter, a dive bomber, and a torpedo bomber. So it's best to look at each ship individually. Now, light carriers are especially unique as their loadouts don't usually have 3 planes. They generally have 2 planes and an anti-air gun of some sort. So keep that in mind. Now, Long Island has fighters in her first slot, and those sit at about an average of 130 efficiency. She'll do decently with anti-air combat, but won't stand out among others. Now, her second slot is dive bombers, and those sit at about an average of 130% efficiency as well. Dive bombers are generally a carrier's main source of ship damage. She'll do well, but again, she won't stand out. Lastly, she has anti-air guns as her third slot, which sit at an 80% efficiency. Once again, average efficiency, but combining that with fighters does give her a nice anti-plane game. Now, upon limit breaking, she gains 2 more fighters and dive bombers, so her plane loadout isn't the worst. So starting off, her damage output is about average, so she really doesn't stand out against the other several light carriers that do exist. When we do get her to level 120, we do see some rather nice bumps to her stats. Health is always nice, but she does get some much needed points into aviation, and her evasion also pretty much almost doubles. So she's worth using the resources to bump her stats up. However, as we know, skills can make a huge difference for ships, so let's see just how well she fares in that department. Long Island's first skill is Quick Takeoff. Now, this skill is not particularly new for those that have seen Ranger's review, but I'll break this skill down once more. Now, every single time Long Island releases an airstrike, there is up to a 15% chance that she'll be able to deploy another airstrike immediately. Now, for most of us, 15% really isn't anything to consider, but there's something that should be mentioned about this skill. This bonus airstrike that you can get can proc on any airstrike, meaning that if you're lucky enough, she can chain this skill a significant number of times. If she chains this enough, well, not even San Diego can shoot down all those planes. Now, the most I've ever seen chain was 6 times, or in other words, 7 airstrikes back to back. This is the only reason that Long Island is currently the only ship in my entire fleet that has managed to ace an entire team in PvP. not even Enterprise or Akagi Kaga have managed such a feat yet, so she does get a little bit of bragging rights there. Now, one last thing to point out with this skill is that how it benefits her loadout. When this skill procs, Long Island gets more fighters and bombers. This can help to both give more air superiority and also do considerable damage to ships in play. It's not often that this skill will proc, but it'll provide a nice extra benefit with her loadout. Now, for rare, she doesn't sound so bad at the moment. However, if you're willing to spend the additional resources on her, Long Island also has a retrofit available, which comes with really my favorite skin. I'm serious, it's adorable. Now with her retrofit, Long Island gets some additional boosts towards the right stats. She actually goes from being about an average aviation to one that is well above average. It still may not be the best, but it's definitely a noticeable boost. Long Island also gains a decent boost to her health and anti-air as well, which will help her with her survival. Her reload does also get a bump, but really it isn't that much. However, her retrofit also boosts her efficiencies with fighters and anti-air guns. Fighters are well boosted, getting an additional 15% efficiency to work with. Combining this with a higher aviation stat and her skill, and she can offer up a potentially strong anti-plane capability if things work out for her. Now, the skill Long Island gains when retrofitted is air support. This skill only procs when she deploys an airstrike, and then that grants any and all carriers up to a 15% boost to their aviation stat for 8 seconds. This skill provides a nice buff to other carriers that sortie with her. What's nice about this particular skill is that because she's a light carrier, she has a faster cooldown than most carriers, thus allowing her to buff all carriers before they actually send out their planes. Some carriers do take a bit longer than Long Island does on cooldowns, so it might not be a bad idea to wait for your other carrier buddies to catch up with her. I never did consider the fact that this skill does pair well with quick takeoff. If quick takeoff does proc, then you get a timer reset with the skill that can extend that timer. Overall, Long Island's retrofit provides a nice upgrade to her kit, and it is definitely worth the resources to put into her. Of course, there are a few other carriers that are probably a bit higher on the priority in terms of retrofitting first, but those characters we'll talk about on another day. Now on to the big question, boss or mob fleet backline? Well, considering her overall skill set, I'd say she stands to be a better mob backliner than a boss backliner. Most light carriers suffer from having a lower damage output due to the lower aviation stats and reduced loadouts. Long Island can potentially make up for this with quick takeoff, but at that point, I think you might want to consider a different character for trying those RNG scenarios out against. Now, if you brought up another carrier, then they will benefit from having her with them. However, these things can be applied to a mob fleet, and mob fleets can be more forgiving on the RNG than a boss fleet might be. Now, thanks to her skills, she's best utilized when paired with at least one other carrier. Personally, I've enjoyed my old tag team of Long Island and Enterprise. This duo has done plenty of things for me and my fleet, including clearing a few EX mode challenges and also, well, doing some decent amount of work in PvP. Now, Long Island's support skill does help Enterprise in her... Really? Enterprise, this is the last time. Stop it. Nonetheless, using Long Island by herself isn't ideal if she's retrofitted. On a side note, any other carriers that have the skill air support will also fight over her buff, so there's a few restrictions on her when it comes to using her in a fleet. Of course, if you really want to have fun, you could pair her with other ships that use quick takeoff, and you might have enough planes to block out the sun. Now overall, Long Island starts off as an average light carrier with some RNG to her. As you spend time developing and retrofitting her, she becomes a decent support boat that works well with other carriers. Now, is she a waifu? Well, I think so, but I know some people aren't fond of her overall voice. Just remember, while she may be a rather tame ship girl, there can be times where she has absolutely no chill and will go on a murder spree. Trust me, it's terrifying. And that'll be all for Long Island. Hope you all enjoyed this video and that it will help you in your future sorties. As usual, the list for the next character reviews are shown on screen now. This list is truncated, but if you're looking for a full list of characters, then feel free to check out the link in the description below. If there is a character that is not on the list that I have not covered, then feel free to let me know in the comments below. Now, I know what you guys are thinking, that the next episode up is going to be the Headbutter Glowworm. I know some of you have been wanting that in particular, but I also know that a lot of you are also wanting Ye Old Dogo 2 Retrofit Boogaloo. So look forward to those videos when they come out. I apologize that it has taken a significant amount of time for this next video to come out, and I am going to definitely be able to have more time now to work on these, so look forward to that for sure. Now, whether you are a regular viewer or a patron supporting the channel on Patreon, thanks for watching and I will see you all again real soon.